We continue now at the top of Daf Kuf Aleph Amud Aleph in Meseches Pesachim. This is Pesachim Daf 101a. The Gemara is talking about a situation where people hear Kiddush in the Beis Knesses, and Shmuel says, Af Yedei Kiddush lo yotzu. Not only are they not Yotze Yedei Yayin, they're not Yotze Yedei Kiddush either. And the idea in Shmuel is that when it comes to making Kiddush in the Beis Knesses, there's a halach, you have to have Kiddush b'makom suda, according to Shmuel. And therefore, you make Kiddush in the Beis Knesses, not in the area of your meal, it's going to be a problem. So the Gemara asks, Ela Rav, but according to Rav, Loma le l'kedushe bevese. What is the purpose of making Kiddush in the person's house? If we say that according to Rav, the person fulfills his obligation of Kiddush, so then why do you make Kiddush again at one's house? Kedei lahotzi bano v'uvnei beso. So the Gemara answers, it's in order to be motzi his children and those people of his household who still need to hear Kiddush. Ushmuel lama li l'kedushe bevei knishta. Now, according to Shmuel, what's the purpose of making Kiddush in the Beis Knesses? If a person's not yotze anything, it doesn't help him in terms of Bori Priagafen, it doesn't help him in terms of the obligation of Kiddush, so what's the purpose? And for that, the Gemara says, Lafuke orchim yedei chovasan. That's in order to be motzi the guests who are staying in the shul, to achlu v'shasu v'ganu bevei knishta, because they eat and they drink and they would sleep in the Beis Knesses, so they need to hear Kiddush. V'yaz the Shmuel, the time of the Gemara says Shmuel follows his reasoning to Amar Shmuel, because Shmuel says in Kiddush ela b'makom suuda. He says the Kiddush, you only fulfill your obligation of Kiddush if it is b'makom suuda, and therefore in the Beis HaKnesses you're not going to fulfill the obligation. The Gemara says Savar mina hani mili mibayis labayis. They thought to say that this is only true if you move from one house to another house, meaning if your meal is in another house entirely, that's when it's a problem of not having Kiddush b'makom suuda. But from one place to another place within one house, maybe it shouldn't be a problem. Amar lehu Ravanon bar Tachlifa. So Ravanon bar Tachlifa said to them, Zimnin Sagin havokim nakami de Shmuel. I was in front of Shmuel one time, v'nochis me igro la'ara, and we went from the upper part of the house, from the roof to the lower floor of the house, v'hadr mekadesh, and he made Kiddush again because that was a problem of not having Kiddush b'makom suda, even though it was in the same house. V'yaf Rav Huna savar ein Kiddush el b'makom suda. The Gemara says even Rav Huna agrees with this halacha that you can only do Kiddush in the place of the meal. The Rav Huna kodesh v'sakrole sharga, because Rav Huna, he made Kiddush and the candle went out. V'ayli le lamane levei ginene de Rabba berei, and then he took his stuff to the house of Rabba, his son. The Rashbam says that Bei Ginena refers to the Beis Chupas Beno. It was the place where his son-in-law was living, the first house for his son-in-law. So he went over there. The Have Sharga, there was a candle over there. The Kaddish, V'toim Midi, and he made Kiddush, and he ate a little bit. Alma Kasavar, you see that Rav Huna holds in Kiddush el b'makom suda. You can only do Kiddush in the place of the meal. V'yaf Rabba Savar in Kiddush el b'makom suda. The Gemara says even Rabba agrees you can only do Kiddush in the place of one's meal. The Amar Abaya, because Abaya said Ki Avina Beimar, when I was at the house of the master, and that refers to Rabba. Ki Hava Mekadesh, when we would make Kiddush. Amar Lon, he said to us, Ti'imu Midi, taste a little bit, eat a little bit. Dilma Adaz Lisu Lishbiza, because maybe when you go home to your host, Mesakra L'chu Sharga, again, the candle's going to go out. V'lo Mekadesh L'chu Beveis Achila, then you're going to have a problem of not having Kiddush in the place where you're eating. U'v'kidusha da'acha lo nafkisu, you're not going to be yotze with this Kiddush if you don't eat a little bit. So that's why he said you have to eat a little de'ein Kiddush el b'makom suda, because there's only Kiddush in the place of the meal. The Gemara says, Ini, is that really true? Meaning, is it really true that Rabbah paskins, in this particular case, that you need to have Kiddush b'makom su'uda like Shmuel? Ve'amar Abaya, but Abaya said, Kol mili damar, everything that the master did, meaning everything that Rabbah did, Havei Ovid Kerav, he would follow Rav, Lavar mehani telos, except for three situations, the Ovid Keshmuel, where he followed Shmuel. What are the three situations where he followed Shmuel? Matirin mi beged lebeged, he said you could take tzitzis off one talis and put it on another talis. Umadlikin miner lener, when it came to Chanukah, you could light one Chanukah candle from another Chanukah candle, and also v'halacha Rabbi Shimon begreira. Also, he said that the halacha is like Rabbi Shimon by greira, by dragging. The Tanya, as we learned in a brayso, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon says, Gorer adam mita kisei v'safsel b'shavis. Rabbi Shimon holds a person's allowed to drag a bed or a chair or a bench on Shabbos, uvilvad shelo yeskaven lasos charetz, as long as he doesn't have an intention, a kavana, to make a ditch in the ground, because then it's going to be a problem of plowing. Meaning, Rabbi Shimon holds davar shein miskaven is permitted. That's why it's permitted to drag this on the ground. Your kavana, your intention, is not to plow. But in any case, what do you see? You see that Rabbah follows Rav in everything except for these three cases. So why is he suddenly following Shmuel and saying that we hold like this stringency, ein Kiddush ela b'makom suda? So the Gemara answers, no, kechumrei de Rav have ovid. That's not true. He would follow the stringencies of Rav. However, kekule de Rav lo have ovid. When it came to the leniencies of Rav, he would not follow Rav. In other words, this statement that said he always followed Rav except for these three situations, that was talking about leniencies. When it came to leniencies, he always followed Rav, except these three things, which are all leniencies, he followed Shmuel. When it comes to stringencies, it's very possible that he followed Shmuel in those cases and not Rav, and that's exactly what's true in this case. Shmuel is machmir. Shmuel says ein kiddush ela b'makom suda, and Rabbah is machmir like Shmuel in this particular situation. And the Gemara continues. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Rabbi Yochanan says af yedei yayin nami yotzer. Rabbi Yochanan is arguing on both Rav and Shmuel, and he says not only when you make kiddush in the Beis HaKnesses, not only do you fulfill the obligation for kiddush, you even fulfill the obligation in terms of borei priagafen, as the Rashbam says, she'ein tzarech lachzor ulevarich al hayayin shebesoch ha'seuda. You don't need to make a borei priagafen again on the wine that's going to be in the middle of your meal. Shaharei lo hisiach daitu b'yitziyasu mi Beis HaKnesses. He did not have any hesach hadas when he left the shul. Shadayin daitu lechol v'lishtos beveso, because he had in mind to eat and drink in his house. In other words, according to Rabbi Yochanan, it doesn't matter that you change location. The fact that you had in mind to have a meal and continue to drink wine, that's perfectly fine. You don't need to make another borei priagafen. So Rabbi Yochanan's more lenient than both Rav and Shmuel. V'yazdu Rabbi Yochanan l'taimin. Rabbi Yochanan follows his opinion. Damar Rav Chanin, Amar Bar Abaye, Amar Rav Pidos, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, because Rav Chanin Bar Abaye says in the name of Rav Pidos, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Echad Shino Yayin. It doesn't matter when it comes to a change of wine. The Rashbam over here explains what that means. Echad shino yayin sheviu lo yayin michavis acheres. Let's say you have a situation where you get wine from a different barrel. You're in the middle of a meal. You had a wine from one barrel. They bring out a new barrel. V'yesh lo tam mishuna o garua o meshubach. It's got a different taste, whether it be a worse taste or a better one. Ein sarach levarach shenis al hayayin. You don't need to make a second bracha on the wine. That's the idea over here when it comes to shino yayin. And then the Rashbam points out, Aval atova meitiv mias mevarach im meshubach min harishon. Rashbam does say that you do make the bracha of atov meitiv if the second wine is better than the first wine. Kidamrin and beharoa. That's what we say in haroa, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Kuf Aleph Amud Beis.